Hey everyone, welcome to The Grind. I'd like to point out today that Steph missed the memo of wearing a certain color scheme.
I didn't even consider green. I deeply apologize.
Green.
So it would have been a very green grind today, but unfortunately it is not.
Fortunately, we look like Christmas.
Woo!
It's too early for that. It's too early.
But not early in the Philippines apparently.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. It's the Burr month, so it's the Christmas month.
The Christmas months, Christmas all day. But then, anyways, before we get to Christmas, we have our 50th anniversary coming up on October 22nd. So we are in a series, basically leading up to that. And so one thing that we're going to be talking about are clouds.
Yep.
Clouds in the Bible and imagery of of the metaphorical meaning behind clouds. And today we're going to be talking about clouds as our guidance. Yes, guidance. I was like, just to make sure that we're on the right topic.
We are.
So basically, the message was observing how the Israelites responded to God's guidance throughout their journey in the wilderness. And so we're looking at the nature of basically God's guidance. But here's an icebreaker question before we get into the message. When you visit a new place for the first time, how do you prepare for the journey? Do you use a guidebook or do you prefer a guided tour?
I use my own cloud of pillar, which is my wife. she pretty much itinerizes. Is it a word?
I think so.
I think so.
Know, is it?
Let's just say
Itinerizes.
Makes the itinerary.
Yes, basically she pretty much does most of the stuff already prior to the travel. So especially now with the kids, we need to figure out like where are the best places with kids and stuff like that. So
friendly.
yeah, she's got it all. So and if ever there's emergency, like for example suddenly it rains, she already got it figured out. So one thing for me, listen to the wife.
Listen to the wife.
Yes and amen. I do extensive research for where I want to go, what I want to eat, and then I make sure that I go with someone who is not directionally challenged.
Yes, that is quite important.
I just lay it all out like this is what I want to do. You figure out how to get there. Because I won't be able to do it.
What did you do the whole trip? Go around in circles, couldn't find a place?
I was lost until now.
Yes, but now I am found.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I like to look up places. So I'll probably Google like, top 10 things to do.
Yeah.
I know this sounds really shallow, but I'll look up like top 10 Instagrammable places.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Because sometimes it does feature cool things.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I would try to avoid the tourist traps. But if I'm going to a new place, I would go to the tourist traps because,
of course,
that's the whole point, right?
Yeah. You want to make your own postcards.
Exactly, and have my own post. And yeah, so I think I'll do that. I also revolve it around coffee shops.
Oh.
Yeah, because I have a Lonely Planet guidebook on like best coffee in the world. I mean, it's probably outdated, but anyways, if it is in like, so I'll like look up like best coffee shops, and then I'll revolve sometimes the journey around that.
Yeah, I've traveled with her before. This is very true.
Yeah.
I feel like guided tours though, they just basically bring you to just like the I don't know, regular.
They bring
places.
you to the commissioned gift shops.
Yeah, and then you have to buy something.
Yeah, which is fine until it feels like you're wasting time in a new place where you would rather just sightsee.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really like guided tours because sometimes they have all this information that I really don't need.
Yep.
Exactly. I just want to go see that rock. I don't need to tell me why the rock is there. So yeah. Okay, here's another thing. Have you then been super lost? Like I feel like I don't even need to complete the question. I feel like Steph is about to share how she's been super lost.
Please do. Tell us.
Just in general, super lost. I couldn't find my way to a bus stop once when it was across the street.
Yeah, I can testify. I was present and also quite incredulous.
Were you waving at the bus stop? We're here.
Oh no, I wasn't at the bus stop. I was basically with the person giving her instructions over the phone, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
I needed to walk across the street and then turn left and walk a little bit. But I didn't see the bus stop, so I was like, "Oh, maybe I needed to turn right." So I turned right.
What is a Zoolander? Can't turn right.
Actually, I've been lost as well. One of the memorable ones. I mean, let me just make it clear also. This is not my mom's fault or my dad's fault. They did everything they can to really make sure that I'm right beside them. So there's this one time I was really young, and then we were eating at a Filipino restaurant in Wan Chai. And then, like when I was a kid, I used to love watching those arcades. Then they have these really big glass windows where you can watch from inside. So I was watching there, and then next thing I know, all of my family members were gone, were missing. I'm like, where are they? And then I started panicking, started crying and stuff like that. And then from my mom's side, she started saying like, during that time they all went to the bus, and then 15 later on the travel, they started realizing, why is the bus so quiet? like they couldn't think of anything else, but like it's really quiet. And then when they got down to the bus, and then they realized Jay's not here.
Oh no!
And then they started panicking and stuff like that. And then on my side, the police came and was like, "Are you lost?" Like that. Yes, I'm lost. And then so they asked me to call those, go to those. I still remember, they have these telephone yellow ones.
Oh yeah.
The landline phones.
Yeah.
So I called there, and I was like, "Mommy!" And they say like, "Oh, you stay there, and we'll wait for you," like that. And then the police was like, "Does this happen?" Like, and then I said, "Yeah, it happens quite often." Oh, it happens a lot. So I was like,
you go home, your mom's like,
my mom was like, "What is wrong?" No, she didn't. But she was like, "You shouldn't just stick." Like, it happened a lot. Like, there's another situation where I got lost at Aeon in Taikushing.
oh my god.
And then, because I love hiding inside those clothes, like you hide there.
Oh my god.
And then I got lost, and then they brought me to the lost and found. And then they say, "Oh, you call your mom." In the what do you call that announcement thing.
It's
So,
like, not again.
So,
What an embarrassment.
so yeah, I've been lost quite a number of times. If you hear someone screaming "mommy," that's probably me.
I wonder if Ryan would ever do that.
I hope not.
I really hope not.
I cannot handle that.
He gets lost in like IKEA.
No, like he will panic so hard. Can you imagine?
He's just like hiding in IKEA.
He will go home. Don't tell your mom about this.
Don't tell your mom that you were lost. Tell your mom that your dad was lost.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean that's just amazing. I love it.
Yep.
How many years of therapy did you have to go through?
None.
I think my parents needed the therapy.
Oh man, I mean again, if you think about like say the Israelites, they were technically lost.
Yeah.
Both physically and I guess well, they weren't really lost because they had like the pillar of like clouds to guide them.
Or so they thought they were lost.
Or maybe they thought they were lost
Yeah.
because, I mean, I'm just thinking, is it like a really huge pillar or is it like a small pillar? Like, is it because it's a lot of Israelites, right?
Yeah.
So is it like one like 6 feet tall pillar or is it like everywhere? You know?
Yeah.
So that the people at the back could see it, or they're just following the person in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I just thought about that. But
Yeah.
anyway, so for them, they were wandering in the wilderness. There was no guidebook like, oh, how to get from Egypt to the promised land.
Yeah.
They weren't following a map, and they wouldn't see like, oh, these are the top 10 Instagrammable places to stop by. Look at rock number 1.
Yeah.
The feature is this. Look at rock number 2.
If you strike this one.
If you strike this one, you get water.
And if you go to this spot, you might get manna.
Yeah.
So it's not like they had like a map, a guidebook, or anything like that. They just had one singular cloud to guide them and one leader to kind of assure them. So I think if I was an Israelite, I'd be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
I'll probably be the person who's going to be spreading rumors. We're lost. Everybody's going to be spreading out.
So anyways, if you read like Exodus chapter 13 verses 17 to 18 and also Deuteronomy chapter 8 verses 2 to 3 and 5 to 6, the question you will see why, like why God led them through the promised land. So we're not going to really read the verses right now, but I think if I were to give the gist of it, actually, I don't know, actually, Steph, do you have the verse still?
Yes, I do.
Maybe just give the gist of what those verses say.
The gist of the verses say that God deliberately brought the Israelites not through Philistine, but towards the Red Sea instead.
Yeah.
Because he knew that if they went through Philistine, that they were not equipped for a potential war that will happen. And instead, he brought them through the Red Sea, even though it was longer, because it would have been safer for them.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, it would have been safer.
Yeah.
They're not ready for war.
Yes.
What is
basically
it good for?
Absolutely
Absolutely not.
Good God, you are.
Good God. Okay.
Good God.
In Deuteronomy 8, I'll just give the gist as well. Basically, it's saying that the 40 years in the wilderness is so that they can humble you. He could humble them, testing them to know what's in their heart.
Yeah.
Whether they would keep his commandments, and then basically again humbling them and let them hunger and fed them with manna. Making them know that man does not live by bread alone, but live by every word that comes from the mouth from the Lord.
Amen.
I mean, sometimes, man, like, you are humbled when you're I guess you're a different person when you're hungry.
Yes.
You are hangry.
You are hangry. He humbled you and let you hunger. So it's like that is
like a different way of starvation, I would say. Like when you're starving for food, you do different things as well. I think spiritually as well, when you're starving for something, you're yearning for something, that's when you start seeking more, I would say. Like I think that's probably what I could think of as well as to why they were in the wilderness for that amount of time. Like despite the fact that the Lord has been with them, but then they're not necessarily intentionally seeking. Because like what we said, we were saying here that maybe based from the Israelites, they felt that they were lost. But the thing is, God was with them throughout that journey. But it's more of the seeking part. Like, how much are you willing to seek God first before finding what you want for yourself, something like that. So that's what I think.
Yeah, so I guess like the reason why like God would lead the Israelites, through the way of wilderness instead of like the shorter route is that I think maybe it's like in the wilderness it will highlight some things that they need to address.
To lay down.
To lay down, to humble them, because sometimes you are the most humbled in your testing times. And that you kind of take away like some like learning, like you take away something like some lessons. Because like the Lord might use that as a time to really discipline you, even though we hate it and it's painful, but when you come out of it, it's like, okay, I understand. And I mean, sometimes there are people who will come out of it and be like, I did not appreciate that at all, and then you just go back to like where they were, and it was just like, well, back to square one. But then there are people who appreciate the time that they've been through the wilderness, and then they take away something and they be better. So I think there is pros and cons of the wilderness. It sucks, but then maybe it's for character building.
As are all things.
As are all things, character building. So, but as an Israelite, if you're there, you're probably like, what the heck's going on?
Definitely character building for me.
I mean, I'm imagining as a whole range of different ages, right? You've got probably the 70-year-old man who is like, I'm so tired. Am I going to die in the wilderness? And I'm
a
sure,
cow complaining as well. No.
And then, I mean, they probably buried bodies along the way because 40 years,
that's
right?
True.
I'm sure they did.
And then you start this journey as a 2-year-old, and then
you're now 42.
And you're 42
when you get out, right? That's actually pretty insane.
Just think about it. Let's think about Raya starting off in the wilderness at 2 years old.
I hope he doesn't feel that way though.
Right. For 40 years.
Or like those who were born in the wilderness and that's all they know, and then they come out of that. So it's like quite an insane journey.
But I would say if there's a 2-year-old kid there that comes out of after 40 years, would probably be one of the toughest people there.
Because
coming out. Like it just reminds me of those who have grew up from wars. Like your grandparents, how tough their life is, and you get to sort of see in their life as a testimony of how they are tough as well. So I'm just thinking about it that way. I mean, like, of course there are a lot of like traumatizing experiences they've had probably for the Israelites as well during their time at the what was it, time of the wilderness. So I was just thinking.
And I'm looking at this, like, we're looking at this from afar. We weren't the ones physically walking through a desert for 40 years. But from this point of view, it it makes me wonder whether the 40 years was that much needed to knock the Egypt out of them. Like after 40 years, they get to the promised land. It's like, oh, I am ready to conquer now because like, it's been 40 years. This is mine. Whereas little less time, it'll be like, oh, like we'll get to a new place. Maybe the food's better. Maybe the enslavement won't be as hard. Our identity is still like we were slaves in Egypt.
Because
Wow,
they've been
really
enslaved for like over 100 years.
Yeah.
A long time.
Like their history.
And I
That's
think
all they know.
and also I think it would be a great time for them. I mean, like, of course, it's a tough situation, but like what you said as well, someone who's being enslaved for that number of years, and you're being in the wilderness with the same people that you are as a community, I think that is a time for you to start knowing your identity as a community, as people of God. And I think that's one of the reasons why they are the only ones in the wilderness. Like, there's nobody else that they would be encountering except God. And through that also, I think it's also a time for them to be able to identify themselves, who they are with God, who are they as God's people. So like you said, like erasing that mindset of being the slave of the Egyptians for the past number of years. And that is sort of like a lineage, because once they grew up, they become slaves as well. So 40 years is, it may look like a long number of years, but it's enough for at least maybe one generation or two generations to actually realize the experience of having that freedom, despite being in the wilderness. So
That's a good point. And I guess, like, again, if we were to put ourselves in the Israelite situation, right, we probably will not understand why we're being guided through the wilderness, because again, especially there's so many people, right? It's not like, it gets, I mean, how like from top down, message can get filtered. Like, maybe it's like, oh, because the Lord's leading us this way, da 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 da. I guess to us it's like, I mean,
someone's leading us.
Yeah, someone's leading us. Yeah, we don't know. Or maybe it got to points like God just wants to mess us over. It could really be that way as well. Like, someone could actually believe that because again, such a big crowd.
Yeah, or like we left too early. We should have left 30 years later.
Exactly.
Like God's not done preparing for us yet.
Exactly. I'm sure they're like factions. So, but here's the thing though, like, how do we then navigate the times when God's guidance goes beyond our understanding?
That's a good question.
For me, what I immediately think of, it kind of goes back to us talking to our question, our funny question just now about what has happened to us when we've gotten lost. When I was really, really young, I'm sure you've done the same with your kids. I'm sure your parents did the same thing.
Yes.
When you go to a crowded place, they're like, if you get lost, we meet at this. If you get lost, don't go anywhere, don't say anything, go to that place. Or like memorize my phone number so you can get a staff to call me. That was instilled into my brain. In a way where now, as an older person, my family still jokes about it. We're like, oh, if we get lost, like, let's meet at this thing. But for me, when I go through wilderness, that's what I do. I go back to that pillar. I go back to a specific promise that was fulfilled, that was just so big. Or I go to a friend who I know has done something similar in the past. Like, I go to something that is solid, that is there and that's tangible, and I fix my eyes on that until I am ready to look away to search for other things around.
That's really good. I'm just thinking, like,
easy to say, hard to do.
I'm just also thinking the fact that the way that your parents actually explain how it is, it's really good. Like, oh, let's just meet here, like that. It's more like, for me, it's more like, if you get lost, somebody's gonna pick you up, like that. It's just a different, different perspective.
Exactly. They're gonna sell you to the market.
It's more of like a threat rather than like a guide.
Exactly.
So I was just thinking about that.
It's like the fear like compels you to stay close to your parents.
Exactly.
Or maybe my parents knew if they said that to me, that would further traumatize me.
So
I mean, really, really.
If I were to look at it also how I navigate, I mean, well, of course, like, it's easier said than done by saying, like, you really need to put your faith and your trust in God. But I've also sort of like, okay, so if that's the case, how do you sort of strengthen that? How do you strengthen your faith? How do you strengthen your trust? And the easiest way to do that is to read the Bible. It's to read His Word and understand the person who is actually really guiding you.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to trust I'm not saying that God is a tour guide, but I'm just saying like an example, like if you're going to be trusting a tour guide, the first thing you need to look about is their credibility.
Yeah.
Like you go to the company, you research on the company, look through the internet, so how much have they accomplished, what is the things that they've done. And I think it same goes with God. I mean, like, we know that the Lord He has done a lot of great things, and sometimes we need to be reminded of that. So because of all of the things that we're having, like sometimes the circumstances that we're on, that's the first thing that comes to our face first, and we forget what God can do. So in order to navigate and to put our complete faith and trust in God is really to read His Word and see all of His promises and be reminded of, okay, this is what God has done for me when I was in the wilderness back in the days, and now I'm back in the wilderness. What should I do? And okay, so this is what God has done for me, and I know He's gonna be putting me away from this at some point. So we just
right.
I've read somewhere once that when we get onto a plane and the captain is like, this is the captain speaking, I am whoever, it's going to take this long. They do it and everyone can hear, because then the passengers can hear the captain's voice. When they've heard the captain's voice, it makes it more of a personal experience and makes it so it's easier to trust them because I know what they sound like.
And it feels like there's a sense of security knowing that there's someone navigating everything.
True.
That's true. That's really good.
Yeah, because on the plane they're also sometimes you preach like, the weather outside's about like this temperature, we should get to this place in about no time.
They make it friendly.
Imagine the captain speaking like, this is your captain speaking, we're going to a place. We're going to somewhere.
We'll get there maybe in around 4 hours time. Maybe.
Let's just hope that we make it, because
it's like the worst thing.
My weather forecast said that there was thunder, so be careful.
We might perish, but who knows?
Yes, turbulence, definitely.
It's a 50% experience.
So if I don't see you at the end of this flight, maybe I'll see you on the other side.
My lord, I'll be like, I'm out.
Can I get down, please?
I will inflate the slide myself.
I am out. Goodbye. I think when it comes to like God's guidance going beyond our understanding, I think we just have to honestly put our faith and trust in Him. And I think just like the captain, right? I mean, do I have a personal relationship with this pilot? No.
I am the captain now.
Look at me. I am the captain. Like, I'm just gonna trust Him that He's gonna guide and lead us to our destination. So likewise, I'm gonna trust and believe that God is gonna lead us to our destination, whatever this promised land may look like, even though we're going through this certain situation. So another thing about God's guidance we hear is that it involves testing, disciplining, and humility, which is something. So here's a question. Do you think God allows believers to go through wilderness in life?
Yes.
Yes.
Because if we don't go through wilderness, if we don't go through things that force us to keep our focus on God, then what is God for? Like, do we really need this faith? If life is, I want life to be easy. I want life to be easy. But if life is so easy, I'm not going to be a Christian.
Amen.
I wouldn't have like sought through the Bible. I wouldn't have like dug through to figure out whether God was right for me. If life was so easy, I didn't need to do it.
Or you would just have followed whatever your parents would have told you who God is as well.
Like my faith would be my parents'. It wouldn't have been mine.
That's very true. Also, like, through these testings and trials, it is a way for you to equip to what God has in store for you in the future as well. I mean, like what we were saying, they have no clue what the promised land is. We don't know what they're capable of, especially the fact that they came from in a very difficult circumstance back to slavery. And I do believe that this particular season, it is difficult. It is a challenging experience, but it is a time for them to also be molded, not only through their skill set or whatever, but it's more of like a molding in terms of like their identity, knowing who they are in Christ. knowing them who they are in God. So then is also a time for you to be able to, like what you said, understand what your identity is personally with God. That's a, like, for example, even in a relationship, there will always be a very difficult trial and testing in your relationship with someone else as well, whether if it's a friend relationship. But then once your relationship has gotten back, it's even stronger. So I do believe that those times of trials is a time for you to be able to keep holding even more to God as well. So
Yeah. I mean, a question that one might ask is, like, if you're in the wilderness, is that our choice or did God let it happen? Like, do our choices lead to that? Because I mean, sometimes, like, okay, like, we fall into sin, and then the sin will lead us into a time of wilderness away from God, because but then in the wilderness, can you still experience a closeness with God like never before? Is God still good if he puts you through wilderness? So there are a whole bunch of, like, different questions that can come out from
very
from
existential, especially when you're angry about the wilderness.
And it's like, you put me here, God. I mean, you can also always point the finger at God and just blame him for everything.
Yeah, that's true.
But then how much of it is our own doing as well? And so, because I mean, like, you know those mind maps where you think, like, oh, if you do A, this will happen, and then if you do A or B, this will happen, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on, and then you end up in the wilderness.
Like when I go to a new place, I mentioned I have to have someone with me. But when I go with someone, I can, and I fully trust this person. I can close my eyes and I'll get there. I don't need. I literally don't need to think. But if I'm going there by myself, then I would have needed to prepare. I would have needed to, like, screenshot my maps if I know I won't have data. I need to, like, know the name of the streets, when to turn right, when to turn left. I prepare myself so that I do not get lost. And then if I do get lost, I have to figure it out myself. But if I'm with someone, I can just, like, eyes closed, go, bring me.
Whether you are in the wilderness, it will always be a question of whether you're going to be putting your trust to God or not as well. What if it's self-inflicted or not?
Yes. I mean, if I were to think about, like, navigation systems back now and then, right now it's super easy. You get data, you can just navigate whatever, right? But then back then, when you're in, like,
when you have, like, a physical map book, I still remember my mom using those to get to, like, Shengshui.
Or even and when I was in college, it was MapQuest. So, CYB, it's basically your GPS, right? So my friend was the driver and I was the GPS. So basically we'll print out the instructions and I'll be like, turn right on Linwood Avenue. Wait, no, that's not Linwood Avenue. We have to go back. We have to go back. No, we have to get on the I-20. What? No. Like, basically,
you, like, use your finger to pretend you are the car.
Like, basically, you have a printout, right? You
have a compass.
And I think sometimes, like, I guess if I were to relate it to, like, now, I think the way God guides us, it evolves. I think what maybe worked back then may not necessarily work now. Like how God is, like how God speaks to you might be different. Like, I know one time before when I read the story of Gideon and I saw how God, like, Gideon asked God, like, specific prayers. Like, oh, if this happens, I will do this. If this happens, this will happen. And so I was like, well, if Gideon did it, maybe let me try. And when I did it, it worked out. I was like, oh, cool. I can do this. So I did it a couple times and God came through. I was like, wow, okay, so this is me, like, seeking God for guidance. And then there was one season in my life, again, where I was, like, kind of at a crossroads and I didn't know what to do. And when I tried to pray that prayer, I felt God say, like, you're beyond this. Like, as in, we don't do this anymore. Like that kind of feeling. And I was like, okay.
So what do you want me to do now?
Like as in, so because the relationship has evolved, right? You know how, like, I think when you first get into, like, relationships with anyone, like whether it be friends or whoever, like the way you talk to them is one kind. And then and then it has evolved. You can't go back to when you first met them. Right? So likewise, I felt God was like, nah, bro. That kind of thing, you know, like,
that's actually really good.
So I was like, fine. He's like, you can't pull that card at me. I was like, okay, fine. Wow. I mean, obviously not in those words, but that vibe.
No, I get it. I when you were telling this story, I thought what you had sensed was God saying, you should know the answer.
Yeah, something like that.
No,
Like-
it's more of like we don't talk this way.
Nice.
Like you need to rework how we communicate.
I'm not your GPS anymore.
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think maybe there are certain situations where, like, I think maybe God understands where I'm at, and then He
Yeah.
will speak to me like for specific situations,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
that
yeah.
I would have asked before.
Mm-hmm.
So because there's certain things that I just really need clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Oh wow.
So I think wilderness, yes, God allows it, and I'm sure we have wandered in the wilderness ourselves. Like, have you? Well, I don't know, can you share a time that you've wandered and wandered in the wilderness and relied on God's guidance to come out of that?
Yeah. I mean, when I first went to university, that was wild. Very wild wilderness. I was still in the process of trying to find community. I wasn't being very wise in comparing that community with the community that I had at home. It was just a difficult time. Like every freshman in university, especially when you go out of country, experiences something quite similar. But that was actually also the time that I read the Bible the most. Like when I stopped wallowing in self-pity and being sad and being like, I miss my friends at home.
Yeah.
I actually, when I felt like I wasn't being fed by because I was church hopping, I wasn't plugged in. That was when I read the Bible the most.
Right.
And I started it off the easy way, because before that I wasn't as strong in reading the Bible. So what I did, and I teach my friends this now actually, is you read the easy books. You read like Philippians has 4 chapters.
Give them Job.
It's super easy.
Yeah.
Don't give them Job. Do not give them Job.
Or Ecclesiastes.
Do not do Leviticus or Deuteronomy. It is a
Numbers,
grocery
you know, 'cause
list.
for those data analysis and accountants,
Yes,
You
them
want
some-
encouragement? Job is for you.
Yeah, it is just a grocery list of what you need to pack when you go camping. Pomegranates, apparently. Read the easy books. Like, get to a point where you actually like, oh, this is God. I remember what God is now. The wilderness gets a little bit easier. But no, like the months that led up to me actually being willing to open the Bible, it's a bit like when I'm hungry, I just continue being hungry. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry, but I can't be bothered. I don't know what to eat anymore. When you get to that stage of hunger, that was where I was at with my faith. Where I knew I had no reserves, but I still was kind of just sitting there like, can someone just IV drip me? Yeah.
So I think for me, I would say, like, I don't know if you guys have had this experience as well, where on my part during that time, I felt like the Lord allowed that wilderness to happen to me. But then the question would be, how long would you want to stay in that wilderness as well? Like it comes to a point where the wilderness is a place where God allowed you to sort of navigate yourself and stuff like that and seek Him as well. But then the question would be is, are you starting to be in a point where you're self-inflicting that wilderness to you instead of being able to get out of that situation already? So I think for me, especially during the time when I was really trying to find where I wanted to be in terms of my career, like my career path and stuff like, but I never had that sort of like, oh, I have a clear view of where I should go. And I think the Lord has already been speaking to me during those times I was in the wilderness, said like, this is where I want you to be in this, but I never listened. Like I've already had people speak to me saying like, this is where you should go. I think this is where the Lord is leading you to go. But I never listened until to a point where I was really stuck in a rut. And then that was the time when really the Lord spoke to me. And the funny thing, He spoke to me through Facebook. Like I read there was a passage there coming from ICA, and He was like, during the time it's clear, it says like no confusion, and then it says like, in God there is no confusion, there's always clarity. And that's where like, oh, the Lord is speaking to me right now. And then the funny thing is, the place where I was working in, I was alone. Like the office was empty, it was just me. So I felt like, whoa, this is the time for me to exit this wilderness. And then you would know, like I experienced temptation there as well, where I was being told whether if I stay, I would have like a bigger amount of money and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah,
like
like
that.
promotion.
Yeah, and
everything.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then when the Lord has given you a direction,
Yeah.
even though you see these things, but your heart is not at peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, oh, that looks really good, like
Yeah.
that. But then you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just go to the direction where God wants me. So I feel that during that time, the Lord really kind of like, I can experience tangibly how God really showed himself to me and told me like, this is the direction where I wanted you to be from day one. So
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I think sometimes with the wilderness for me, it's yes, there's also like the how long I choose to be there as well. Like, I mean, and then also sometimes I realize that maybe I enjoy being in the wilderness because I enjoy throwing my own self-pity party.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'm a masochist like that. Or but I mean, I think I replay the situation in my mind and I like put myself continually in the wilderness, but then sometimes I also don't know why I'm in the wilderness, and then so I get frustrated, like, and then I just then spiral, and just it becomes just my own mind, and my imagination can run wild. Yes, it is a dark situation here sometimes.
It doesn't help that you're creative.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like it's different situations. I think one thing that really helped me was actually Psalm 23. At one point, there was one time I was just going through this wilderness. I remember people just praying over me and like declaring it. And one of my friends said like Psalm 23, and the specific phrase like, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. The key word is walk through, because my kind of personality is that I want to run,
teleport,
run, avoid pain. I think that's an Enneagram 7 thing, or it's just
like, can I just go to the promised land, skip
I
this,
just skip all of this, right? Like, because if there's one thing that I'm good at is running away from my problems and jumping to conclusions.
second emotion.
So then I would want to run through the valley of the shadow of death, but the phrase says
Walk in the valley of the shadow of death.
and I think there is value when you walk, because I think you are, I guess, also allowing the Lord to also like work in you and heal you as well. And also like I think it teaches you like dependence on
God.
the Lord as well. I will fear no evil, because I think if you run through that, it doesn't give much time for God to really work in your heart, does it? I mean, yes, God can work supernatural, but then still it does take time. And then maybe in the valley that you realize how you've been guided out of it, then maybe someone else who happens to be in the same situation, you can also guide them out of it.
It gives you a journey to look back on.
And encourage someone. So I think sometimes I like to think that sometimes experiences that I go through helps me to empathize with the people who may go through the similar situation, and I can also walk with them as well, not as like a savior complex kind of thing, but like just to be there for people.
Sort of an encouragement, sort of like be that person to sort give them some insights. You don't have to follow what I do, but maybe your stage is different.
And
but there's a
companionship
similarity.
is also comforting.
Or just listening, right?
So I mean, something to think about as well is like God's guidance is steadfast and compassionate, and even though it's like, again, dark times, wilderness, whatever, we should always remember his faithfulness and goodness, and that hey, his kindness and compassion is something that we shouldn't take for granted. So I think like what we mentioned, remember, reflect, and that's something that the Israelites forgot in the wilderness, is that they forgot. And I think
they just crossed the Red Sea.
They just crossed the Red Sea. I mean, as a 2-year-old when you cross the Red Sea, you might be like thinking like,
what's happening?
Yeah.
Woo! And then 20 years
Why
later,
do you sound like Mickey Mouse?
and at age of 22 was like, what happened? What did we? It was aquarium, wasn't it? Or something like that. So, but I think
that's when the parents come in and remind them.
No, we were running for our lives. And I think throughout the Bible, if we were to see like characters, there were other characters that spent time in the wilderness besides the Israelites, like Joseph. He was sold into slavery and was stuck in prison for unfair reasons. Then you've got Moses. Literally he was banished from Egypt because of like something that he did. And then you've got David, who was like running from Saul for no reason and spending time in the wilderness. And you got Jesus being stuck, right? In the wilderness for 40 days and tempted as well. I mean, if I was tempted for 40 days, 40 nights, I might break. I really might break.
Day one.
Bye. Sorry, God.
Yeah. So, can you relate to any of their experiences and how it compares to your own journey?
I think the easiest would be Jesus. Like I said, like he was being tempted for 40 days and 40 nights, and he was able to withstand that temptation. The only difference is for me, like day one, I'm like, this is so difficult. Day two, okay. like I think
Resignation.
Dear sir.
Dear sir, yeah. So I think that would be like, for me, it's almost like an everyday thing. Like you will always come to an experience where you're gonna be tempted with a certain thing, whether if it's getting a new opportunity, and sometimes, of course, like this is the time when you need guidance from God. Like there will always be an opportunity, but the question is that opportunity right for you, or if this opportunity is not meant for you, and you really need guidance, because we always have to remind ourselves that God is there to he always wants to give you what's best for you and not to harm you. And sometimes that opportunity might not be the best one for you. It might be harmful for you. So I feel that's one thing that I could think of, just the fact that every time that we are in a state of challenge, where for me personally, of course, there will always be a season where where do you want me to be where do you want me to be in this season, God? And sometimes when you're not careful, you're gonna be listening to something else, and you just get fed by that lies, and then you get sick and tired of certain things, and then you realize that it seems even for me personally, I can experience that my attitude is not in the right place. So, and then that's where, like, Lord Jesus, I feel like during this season I am not being guided by you, but I'm actually guided by my own self-interests. So yeah.
Good point.
I think I relate more to Moses in that, with the personality that I have, I would make a mistake and run away from it. I make a mistake, and I whether it's intentional or not, I run. And just looking back at my life, sometimes I didn't need to run. Sometimes running into the wilderness truly was self-inflicted. And of course, like, God meets you there. God works all things for good. But did I need to go through the wilderness to learn that lesson? Maybe, maybe not. You know, it has happened already, and it is what it is. But so what really strikes me about Moses' story is, made the mistake. It was a big one. And then he ran away. In running away, at least he found his people. At least he found his calling, and at least he found peace and comfort after the torment that he put himself through. Because it means that in my wilderness, if God did it for Moses, who killed a man, I have not killed anyone, then good things can come for me as well. You know.
Yeah, that's good.
The character I would relate to probably would be Joseph. I think just because, like,
Joseph.
No, I'm just kidding.
Because of what?
Were you abandoned?
Well,
she does dress very well too.
the multicolor coat.
Katrina the Dreamer.
I mean, I wasn't in Joseph Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Well, you're creative. That's what I can say.
I mean, the dude was, he was a little bit arrogant in the beginning. And
of course.
I think some of his actions warranted the way his brothers treated him.
Warranted the hatred.
I mean, sometimes I can be a smart aleck. So, anyways.
Mommy loves me.
Anyways, and then, so, like, there was one, what was it? At the end of it, where he reconciles with his brothers and everything. Says, like, whatever you meant for evil, God meant for good. I think I've seen that, like, play out in my life, where there are things that happen. I'm like, why am I going through this? And then I see, okay, I understand that this is where I learned to depend on God a lot more. And that in every season that he experienced favor, even though it was tough, like, God was still with him. God's favor was still with him. And I think I've been through tough seasons of my life, but I feel like God's favor has never left me.
Amen.
And I think that was so that's something. So even though like in the wilderness I may not understand like why I'm there, but I sense like God's favor still with me.
Amen.
Even though I'm like, I don't feel you're here,
Yeah.
but then deep down I know He is there. So
And then God is like, I'm the fire pillar, girl.
Yeah.
why are you saying that?
Yeah.
So I guess with that being said, we will face trials and
Yeah.
temptations in the world, and I think like last thoughts really quickly. How can we find peace and assurance in God's guidance even when the path ahead seems uncertain?
I think for me, like, it just came up just suddenly because I was thinking of what to answer with this question as well. But after listening to you guys, one thing that I really am grateful for is the fact that whether the wilderness is self-inflicted or something that God has placed, or is you're in a season where you are in that wilderness, the Lord is not going to be like, you did this to yourself, you're on your own. It's not like that. It's like, I told you not to get there, but just go there. I'll be with you. I'll guide you, and I will be with you. So don't worry. So this is one thing that I think, something that I will really put in heart. That I mean, I'm not gonna be doing self-infliction, like bringing myself in wilderness, but I know that the Lord will be with me, no matter the circumstances, whether if it's gonna be a very challenging situation. And I really want to encourage everyone as well. That maybe you guys are in a season of wilderness, maybe whether if it's self-inflicted, you don't know, but just keep holding in God's promises that you will go through this. It's gonna be tough, it's gonna be challenging, but there will be growth, both in you as a person and also your personal relationship with God.
And like your wilderness can be anything. Your wilderness can be unemployment. It can be temptations. It can be family relationships. It really could be anything that makes you feel like you're far away from God. And what I have learned recently is that struggling is not sin. Struggle with God. We're not perfect. We face things. Whatever it is you're struggling with, if you're partnering with God, it is not the same as you having been departed from God. Departing from God is very different from falling and then being like, God, I want to get back up. You know, so I just want to leave you guys with that and leave myself with that too.
No, that's
really good.
I think if one thing that helps face trials and temptations is have accountability. Like have someone that you can talk to, whether it be a mentor or your kingdom group. I think just the fact to have people to do life with, I think it helps to withstand the trials
Have your
and temptations.
Israelites.
Have my group, have my tribe of Israelites. The kind that doesn't tell you like like life sucks, but I think who really edifies you.
Amen.
So that'll be my last thought.
That's really good.
Cool. This was a really great discussion. Thanks,
it is.
guys.
I love it.
Well, that's all the time that we have for the grind today. We will catch you in our next one. Bye.
Bye.